Hey there, Math Rock Stars. This video is about interval notation. And interval notation is used to describe the domain and the range of a function in a pretty compact way, so you don't have to write it out in words. I'm going to be showing you interval notation and something called set notation. The interval notation looks like this. We've got a set of brackets, and this would mean that you are including the endpoints. So this includes endpoints or end values. And I could use parentheses, and this does not. Include the endpoints. And then there's something called set notation, which I'll talk about in a minute. So in interval notation, if you are using brackets, it's kind of like greater than or less than and equal to. So the brackets kind of correspond to the greater than, equal to, less than, or equal to, and the parentheses correspond to just the greater than or the less than when you're not including the values, the specific values that you're referring to. So in our first example right here, where we have a bracket 3 and then a 100 and a parenthesis, this means that I'm including 3 in my set of numbers, but I'm not including 100, just everything up to 100. So this interval notation means that it's going to be all numbers starting with 3 up to, but not including 100. So 4 is in there, 50 and a half is in there, -1 is not, 100 is not, but 99.9999999 is. If I wanted to write this in set notation, I would use something like this. Oops. And what this stands for is all numbers, and this little line, straight line, we read as such that. So all x's such that x is between, we would say x is between 3 and 100, including 3, but not including 100. So this is the interval notation, and this is the set notation. Take a look at that next interval. So this interval says all numbers between -1 and 0, but I'm not including -1 and I'm not including 0. It's numbers like -0.2 or -0.567, but not 2, but not -2 or -1 and 0. So the set notation for that would look like this. All x's such that x is between -1 and 0. So here I'm using those less than symbols because I've got the brackets, or sorry, the parentheses. Let's look at the last one here. So this means all the numbers between -infinity and +infinity. So what this means is all real numbers. -infinity and +infinity aren't numbers, so that's why they're not included. So the parentheses are used because infinity is not a number. so you can't include it. And then if I were going to do this in set notation, I would say all x's, all numbers, such that x, and this symbol here means it's an element of, or it's part of, element of. So in other words, it's a part of the group of all real numbers. And that symbol right there stands for the set of real numbers. I'm gonna give myself some space, whoops, for the last bracket there. So the set notation, these guys here in yellow, the interval notation on the left, are probably the easiest way to describe the domain and range rather than having to write out a whole bunch of numbers. You will see the set notation, the stuff in blue, in textbooks, but you're more likely to see, at least in our textbook, the interval notation. And I think it's the easiest one to use, so I tend to stick with that. But if you like the set notation, you could certainly use that, and you could also write out in words what you are trying to describe.